A monarch in my
You got out in Canada.
yeah. So I saw a butterfly in the garden. I was like, oh, they're back into the way. I was kind of hoping that they'd bypass me just because I don't mind it.
Yeah, I haven't had like maybe one or two.
Good afternoon, everybody. How you guys doing? Good. So we're gonna have a little introduction in a few minutes about Campus Park, the Friends of Campus Park project, and then we're gonna do a little talk on milkweed, about monarchs and all that, and then we'll do a talk about some of the native plants of Oxnard. Make a little native food for you guys if you want to try out some food, and give out some more plants. So if you haven't gotten your plants, I think we'll be a few minutes, right, Aurelio?
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 minutes.
Yeah, I had three. And two of them are still alive. Okay, so am I not doing yeah, I haven't had this. Had 1 year, and I just had in my yard. And of course, that's the time I get interested. Right. Come back again. Use it. It comes back the next time. I gotta get rid of this stuff. Like you don't want to get rid of it. You got them there, but at the same time. I've got one big one that's native. It's pretty big. But it's almost like, yeah. They should but it's like dark. That's not much. Yeah,
The fruits yeah, they're not.
Test 1, 2. Test. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the California Native Mini Workshops. My name is Aurelio Campo. I am one of the founders of Friends of Campus Park. Have you guys heard of Friends of Campus Park? Raise your hand, anyone? All right. This is a collaboration between the Friends of Campus Park and Samofun. Our friends from Samofun were kind enough to do these workshops about native plants and pollinator plants and all those nice things, wonderful things. The Friends of Campus Park is doing this under the County of Ventura grant that we were given to talk about native plants and pollinators. And this is one of our first workshops that we're doing. We're doing live stream on our Friends of Campus Park YouTube page. And so we're just really excited. This is our first time. We're learning, and we want to do more of these wonderful workshops and do them live stream. And just a little bit about Friends of Campus Park. This year you're going to see more samples of what we're going to be doing at Campus Park here in near downtown Oxnard at the old Oxnard High School site. What we're trying to do is we have a nonprofit, and we are in talks with the city of Oxnard to come to an agreement so that the Friends of Campus Park helps maintain, helps program, helps create events for the park, Part of our mission is educational, it's programming, it's to inspire, it's has to do with the environment, to take care of the environment. So that park is going to be, it's very central to the city of Oxnard. We are going to have a volunteer program. So if you have nothing to do on a Saturday, Sunday night, if you want to help out with volunteer helping maintain the park in the future, we're open to you guys helping out. So this year we're going to start doing these programs. We're going to start doing the events. You're going to slowly start seeing us come, creating our action, right? We've been talking about it for a long time. So slowly but surely, we're going to start creating all of this. What you're going to see at Campus Park, you're going to start seeing all throughout Oxnard and Central Oxnard. And so we have Antonio. Antonio, you want to say something? We're going to start at 3:00. So it's going to be two 30-minute workshops.
Yeah, thanks, Aurelio. It's weird to hear your voice, huh? That's loud. Ma'am, are you going to stay for the class? You don't want to miss it. It's a free class. It's the best free class you're going to see today. I'm just kidding. So I met Aurelio through the Oxnard Native Plant Festival.
Yes.
Yeah. And to me, it's amazing that you guys are going to do a park in Oxnard that's focused on native plants, which is just what Oxnard was focused on 300 years ago, right? It's just taking it back to 300 years, winding the clock. So that's for us. And we work in the Santa Monica Mountains. Those are all my coworkers over there. Sophia, Christina, Brian, and Manny. Two of them from Oxnard, myself being born in Oxnard, and two folks that, since they're not from Oxnard, it's not so important. I'm just kidding. Los quiero. But we're here in the Santa Monica Mountains, which goes from about Malibu, Camarillo, all the way up to Agora Hills, even to Simi. And there's talks of extending that to Pasadena, right? The rim of the valley, they're going to call it. But what's really exciting is that there's a ton of native plants there. The sad thing is, if you guys look around, there's not much left in Oxnard. But about 7 miles away, there's intact habitat that we can collect the seed of and give to you guys to restore Oxnard. That's our goal, is to help you guys get the genetics that wants to grow here, just bring it back to Oxnard a little bit at a time. So we're here to help you with the mountains, and whatever we can do to help, we'll help. Just don't ask to borrow money, because I got that El Rio credit score. It's actually true. So whenever you want, my coworkers will come up and give the movie.
Okay, so you guys are ready to start at 3?
And then I'm going to give a talk on 7 of the plants that got me into native plants. And then I'll make a little bit of native food if you guys want to try native food. And I'll give out a few other plants besides milkweed if you guys are interested.
So can you just say, so 3:30, the first workshop?
Yeah, probably. How long do you guys think you're going to take for your class? Like 4 hours usually?
Like 5.
Like a Lord of the Rings movie?
Give or take a few days.
Probably about 20, 30 minutes for the milkweed class, depending on how many questions we get. And then I think we can just jump right into the other class, because it's feeling like, I think everyone's going to be here at the same time. So that'll take about 20, 30 minutes too. Cool.
So without further ado, you guys want to come up and start the workshop? Our Facebook page is Friends of Campus Park. Our website is friendsofcampuspark.org.
Awesome. Okay, hello everybody. I brought some monarchs so that you guys can have something to look at while we're talking in case you get bored. And then this is milkweed right here. So my name is Cristina Jimenez. And
Hi guys, I'm Brian Perez.
we're going to be giving you the milkweed talk today. First, I want to start off by saying why we have this grant and who we're employed by. We are part of the Santa Monica Mountains Fund, and we are employed through the Fish and Wildlife, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. We got a grant to give away 25,000 milkweed to Ventura County and Los Angeles County. Is great. And then also another 25,000 to restore into the Santa Monica Mountains. And then the same thing for next year, another 25,000 to Ventura County, Los Angeles County, and then another 25 in the parks for a total of 100,000 plants, which is great. Yeah. So the reason why we, have this grant is because the monarch population unfortunately has declined. 99% here in in like Southern California. It's a big jump, and it's declined 99% since I believe the 1980s. So we got funding to help restore that, and it's great to see. Thank you guys for being here. We appreciate you guys at home, whoever's watching. Thank you. The first steps is just to kind of talk about it. So some parts of this talk are going to be a little sad, but it's okay because there's a silver lining, and there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. So I do want to give, real quick before we start our talk, a land acknowledgement. The land that we live on and work on have been occupied by the Chumash and Tobonga tribes for centuries. And many people of those tribes still to this day use native plants for various things like food and cordage. And something really interesting about milkweed is that native tribes still to this day use milkweed to make cordage, which I think is really great. So let's talk about some reasons why the monarch population has declined. Brian?
Yeah, of course. Hi, folks. Once again, I'm Brian. I'm with the Santa Monica Mountains Fund. Quick thing about us is that we are milkweed technicians. By this point, we're so tired of it that it's just a fancy way for us to say that we play with dirt and we get paid for it. But for the most part, what we do is we handle a lot of milkweed that we grow over the course of the year, where a lot of it is volunteer ran by folks like you that really help us out and put a lot of the work yourselves. Any of the work we do wouldn't be possible if it weren't for you folks coming out and picking up this milkweed. If not, we'd just be standing with free plants, And a lot of it, like Christina said, is a little melancholy. In the beginning, there's a lot of stuff that comes out of our control that affects why we don't have milkweed in populations like today. Most of it is climate change, or at least some of it is climate change, right? And this year, we've noticed that we have something that is our extended winter. So we got into the months like February, March, and it was wet. It was really, really wet. And a beautiful thing about this plant, and also a really difficult thing about this plant, is that though it's easy to grow, it loves weather and it memorizes it really well. So for a plant like this, as opposed to tropical milkweed, anyone heard of tropical milkweed? Beautiful. Well, we'll get more into that definitely in a bit. But with a plant like this, since it memorizes weather, we get climate conditions that change when we have our hotter seasons, our colder seasons. So it's difficult when we tell folks that this plant comes up in March and goes back down in sometime in October, because then we get months like March that are really wet, really cold. So now we have to figure out, what are we going to do? How are we going to make this work? And luckily, we're able to work with a plant like this, narrow leaf milkweed, that it's easy to grow. We wouldn't be giving out 25,000 of this plant if it wasn't going to be a plant that we knew everybody here can handle. And, it won't work all the time. I've killed more plants than I'd like to admit myself, but it's part of the process, and we learn from our mistakes. So with that, climate change is one of them. But we have other species that grow here in California, specifically in the Santa Monica Mountains, that we're working with. Though we're giving you folks this, our nursery is also growing a different species called woolly pod milkweed, if you've heard of that one, or California milkweed. They occur in these beautiful high elevations, and they tend to sprout just a little bit earlier into the season. So it's hopefully something that we hope to bring to our native nurseries in upcoming years to hopefully be able to establish more of that. Now we can get more into the stuff that's more in our control, especially in Oxnard. Me growing up a little bit in LA at the time, we have a lot of gentrification that comes in place, a lot of building, a lot of replacements. And, we can have our own opinions where we want to establish that. But I think the thing that matters out of all that we can agree on is the plants we take out, the stuff we move from that area. What are we going to do when we put everything back? I think it's important we put that native landscape back into these places that we're going to be building. And most of the time that we do non-native landscapes or more aesthetic stuff that we see at any Westfield mall at this point. But I think that's something that could definitely make more impact and more change. And the last thing is pesticide use for the most part. I think with the plant to grow like this, like milkweed, it's really easy to want to think you want to use pesticides because it grows fast and it grows strong. But in reality, it's a really easy plant to maintain. There shouldn't really be much of a need to have to use any sort of pesticide for this plant, especially if you're going to be worrying about aphids. If you have aphids on your plants ever at one point, there have been enough studies that have shown that there's nothing that really bothers this plant with aphids, that they're harming it or they're messing with it in any way. I'd say you probably have to worry more about the ant colony you have at that point, because they like bringing the aphids to the plant. And then we have like the milkweed bug, but there are also natural pesticides like soap and water that you can use for this. That's most of the stuff that affects the climate change or the things that happen with milkweed.
Yeah, something else that I love talking about is also, You can help the monarch population by supporting the mothers, right? The monarch butterflies. So can I just get a quick show of hands? How many people love mothers? Yeah. Yeah, we love moms, right? We can all pretty much agree on that, that there's some mother in our life that we love. And so let's help the monarch butterflies, right? Let's help them by planting other pollinator plants. We ask that you take 5 milkweed plants, and the reason for that is because if a monarch butterfly comes, lays her eggs, we want to make sure that, you know, the baby has enough to eat, right? But we can also help by making sure the mom has something, right? Some nectar. We can plant other pollinator plants. Some of my favorite that are California native are buckwheat. Is anybody familiar with buckwheat? Yeah, I love buckwheat. It's such a beautiful pink, kind of similar to this flower. But then when it seeds, it turns like this rust color, and I just think it's the most beautiful thing in the entire world. And then we also have another pollinator plant that you could plant is golden currant, and we have some right there, golden currant. Antonio is going to be talking to you guys about more native plants. But those are just 2 of my favorites. And yeah, without further ado, I want to get into the planting and.
Yeah, we'll go over tropical milkweed a little bit too.
Oh, okay, let's go over tropical milkweed first, and then we'll go over the planting.
Okay, beautiful. That sounds good. Do any of us here right now have tropical milkweed we're growing in our gardens? Okay, great. So we'll go over that a little bit right now. To start off with, tropical milkweed, don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful plant. It grows about 1 meter in height, about almost the same as we see with our narrow-leaf milkweed, and it is a beautiful plant. It sprouts these orange-red flowers that we just love to see. Me, myself, I come from Centro America, El Salvador, so if there's one thing I can speak on behalf of that is that my family, my culture, we love bright, colorful flowers. We love what stands out and what calls out to us because that's a lot of what we grew up seeing. But something that I see that isn't really prevalent here in California is that as gardeners, as nations of immigrants and so on and so forth, we do a lot of our planting with our eyes. We do a lot of it with what we think is aesthetic, what we think is beautiful. And in a lot of senses, we overlook what comes with California native plants that are also just as much beautiful. So saying that with this milkweed, we don't really look out for our native endemic areas of the nature that comes in by the animals that we have that cross by that area. And that's why it's so easy to work with a plant like narrow-leaf milkweed. Like I mentioned earlier with pesticides or everything like that, if you've grown tropical milkweed, you know it's easy to grow because it grows any time of the year. What you have is essentially a plant that's able to grow in the winter, able to grow in the summer, able to grow in the fall. But what you're doing is essentially you're leaving this plant open the entire year for the monarch caterpillars and the butterflies to lay eggs and to stay, or the butterflies to lay eggs and stay there the entire year. So where are they going to migrate? Where are they going to go? You're giving me a Barnes and Noble that you're going to leave open 24/7, and I'm not going to leave. And that's what you're doing when you have a tropical milkweed plant like this. So if you're wondering what you can do, if you're hoping to keep it, that's fine. I definitely suggest when you get into major holidays like Thanksgiving, January 1st, or even Valentine's Day, you cut it down to the ground and you just let it stay there for most of the time. That way the monarch butterflies at least know to migrate. And then when you get into March, you can just start letting it grow as usual. The difference with that and narrow-leaf milkweed, the plant we're giving you today, it's easy to grow. This plant is going to be easy to grow when you're establishing it right now. I'm giving you 5 to take home with you today. I definitely suggest that you folks keep these 5 with you at least together. If you have friends, family, neighbors that want more, go ahead and ask us in the back and we'll definitely give you more. But the reason for it is because we're giving you a food source so you have enough to feed the caterpillars that you're going to get with you. It's going to grow now. It's going to grow strong. And I know we're not giving you a Lowe's, a Home Depot quality 5-gallon plant, but what I am giving you is a young plant that's able to remember roots really well. It's able to remember soil really well and able to establish itself really well in the soil you're going to get. So by doing this, you're going to grow it now. It's going to grow really well for you. And when you get into November, it's going to start dying down to the ground. Don't be alarmed. That's part of the plant. It's supposed to go down because it has this beautiful relationship with monarch butterflies that they know that once this dies down, the monarch butterflies have to start migrating away. So it'll die down for you. Like I said, climate change kind of affects it, but it'll happen sometime in October, November, and it'll come back up for you in March. Now, I'm going to start with planting. Is any of us growing in pots? Okay, beautiful. I'll get into that in a minute right now, but to start off with growing in the soil, this is a really, really easy plant to grow for the most part. We have thousands of California native plants, but this is one of the only plants that exists in every county here in California. The reason for that is because this plant loves all types of soil. We have clay soil, we have loam soil, we have high elevation, any sort of elevation. We have cracks here that you'll find in the most urbanized areas. And this milkweed will grow there for you. It'll grow really well for you as well. So the 3 main points I want you folks to take home with you today is that When you're watering, you don't need to water this as consistently as we water other non-native plants. This is a drought-tolerant native plant. It only needs a once-a-week watering the first couple of weeks, and it needs a good deep watering. So if you can, give it about 2 to 5 gallons of water. And what you're doing is essentially you don't want to water the plant top or even the entire pot. I want to imagine that I'm watering under the root system of the plant, so it has a well of water to dig to. It has the ability to push itself and try to establish more roots and grow better and grow stronger. So if you find yourself having the time, I know it'll take longer, especially if you have clay soil, to try to water this out. But once a week watering is much more promising than having to multiply water it a couple times a week. After that, you can water it as you please, like a chile, like a tomato. Just make sure you establish that really good deep well of water in the first couple of weeks. And what I'm doing is, as opposed to growing it in a pot, this is a plant that already has its own nutrients. The soil has its own nutrients, its own resources that it needs. So you don't need to fertilize it. You don't need to necessarily worry about anything more than that. If you have full sun, perfect. This plant loves full sun. Full sun is the best. We've also seen it do really well in partial shade. So anything will work for that for the most part. And you want to have the 5 plants that I'm going to give you be 3 feet together at the least, 10 feet apart at the most. Essentially, you want to imagine that the caterpillars that you're going to have that come on by have enough space to go from plant to plant, because they will eat this and they will eat this viciously. As for pots, we have a couple folks growing in pots. I wish there was a better rubric of what I can give you if you're going to grow in pots. But for the most part, it's having to just, if you're comfortable already growing your things in pots, it's just acclimating yourself to how they feel when they're watered. I always look at it, or our nursery manager looks at it, if you're a waiter filling out some sort of water. You don't want to be filling it when it's full, nor do you want to fill it when it's completely empty, right? You want to wait till it's maybe halfway. So if you've become familiar with how your pot feels like at some sort of drainage, just give it consistent watering and see what that feels like. I would recommend using a 5-gallon watering or a 5-gallon container, yeah, if you have the chance to. Those are the best. But some of us, anything over 2 gallons is ideal, because most of us, or at least I live in an apartment complex, so I don't have the space for a 5-gallon. So if you have multiple 2 gallons, that works fine too. And most importantly is fertilizing your plants if you're growing them in pots. You want to keep that soil high in nutrients, and any fertilizer is fine. Just remain consistent with it and it'll be just fine for that.
All right, awesome. I think Brian covered everything. So now would be a good time for questions if anybody has them. Yeah.
I have a couple, actually.
Okay.
What is cordage?
Okay, what is cordage? Cordage is used to like tie things together, like a cord.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
cordage.
I live underneath a bunch of eucalyptus trees.
hmm
How is this going to grow in that ground? Because the eucalyptus trees tend to become a bit.
Yeah, the eucalyptus trees do make the soil very acidic, but this plant is super resilient. It is found in every county in California. So that's all the way up from San Francisco all the way down to San Diego. So yeah, it is eucalyptus. The only thing that I would be cautious about is how much sun it's getting. I know eucalyptus trees do offer a lot of shade. We have found this in the shade, but it won't grow very strong and it probably won't flower if you are planting it over there. Yeah.
So it would be better than for me to put it in pots so that I can put the pots
In the full sun, yeah. I think this does like full sun. I mean, if it's less than 10 feet apart, you can try both. That's also another option. Yes.
How deep should I plant it? Should the soil be level with
Yeah.
and what it is in that little
Okay.
starter pot, or should I make it a little well? Or
Yes.
all down up the dirt?
So the question is, how deep should she dig her hole when we're about to plant the pot or plant the plant? You want to dig the hole as deep as the pot and then 2 times as wide as the pot. If you guys have the QR code that we attached onto one of your plants, it does lead you to our website where we have a planting video. But the reason for that is it's really compact, right? So it's a California native soil, and our soil, it's like almost like a rock, right? So we want to ensure that it's compact, and you want it to be level with the soil around it, right? You don't want it to go too deep because then it might drown, right? So when you dig the hole just as deep as the pot, 2 times as wide, and then you want to really compress that plant into the soil and lots of water. Okay.
That size of a plant, are you actually giving it a gallon of water?
Yes, because we're not watering the plant. Oh, sorry. The question was this size of plant. We're giving it, we say 2 to 5. We want a few gallons per plant. And the reason for that is because we are not watering the plant. We're watering the soil around the plant just to ensure that those roots get established. Any more questions? Yes.
Um,
Yeah, so 3 feet. We recommend that it's 3 feet apart. Each plant is 3 feet apart in distance, and the reason for that is this plant is rhizomatic, which means that it grows through the roots. And the next year, if your plant lives to the next season, more shoots will pop up. And so that's why we want to make sure that we give it a bunch of space. Also, out in nature, when we scout for it in the Santa Monica Mountains, we usually find it in like dry, grassy areas, usually at the bottom of slopes where water kind of builds up, and they're not really close. They're not that clustered. They're a little more spread out. And that's the way that it is in nature. It doesn't like too much humidity. I know here in Oxnard, we have like a lot of humidity. So we really want to ensure that they're not too close, just so that, you know, we can kind of mimic the conditions that it is in nature. Yeah. Yeah, honestly, that's not a problem because that's how it is in nature. That's what they're adapted to. The only thing that we ask is that you don't put the plants more than 10 feet apart, because at that point it leads a bigger risk for like the caterpillar to get stepped on or to get, you know, give up if it's too far. So usually 3 feet, and then the mother caterpillar will kind of know, right? Will know how much. If it's just one milkweed, you know, if there's no other milkweed, she might lay her eggs there. But if there's a few milkweeds in the same area, then it's good for the caterpillar. Yes.
I'm currently growing both the tropical and the native, and I was just curious. Something I've noticed is that the tropical milkweed does grow much more quickly.
Yeah.
Is there a reason for that? 'Cause the native plants that I have are still kind of just
Yeah.
ticking along, and then the other ones are just so big.
Yeah, so she said that her tropical milkweed is growing a lot faster than the native milkweed, and that could be because of the extended winter. You know, here in Oxnard, I mean, every single day I was longing for the sun. I'm like, sun, where are you? I feel like we can all kind of relate to that. And, you know, so can the milkweed. It's like, what's going on? Like, should I be growing right now? And now as it starts getting hotter, I feel like this is probably the first week where we've had like consistent sun. I would expect your plant to start growing a little bit more now. But yeah, again, since you have both tropical milkweed and native milkweed, leave the tropical milkweed now because there might be caterpillars depending on it, and then just cut it down in November. Yeah. Yes.
I thought the county had made a regulation that they weren't supposed to sell anymore.
Yeah. So that is thanks to Antonio. What is it? Not thanks to you?
What did she say?
Yes. Okay. So she said that they're not allowed to sell tropical milkweed in. Sorry, that's not thanks to you, Antonio. No. In Ventura County, they're not allowed to sell tropical milkweed, and it actually got banned in like the big box stores like Lowe's and Home Depot. And the reason for that is because it is messing with our native monarchs, you know, and the migration and everything like that. So yeah, but it does. It's like, I'm not sure if you guys have ever seen the seeds of milkweed. They're very similar to dandelions where they spread very easily. And if, you know, one person has tropical milkweed and then all of a sudden it's in the entire neighborhood because it spreads almost like a weed, right? This native milkweed won't spread like that. Hopefully it will. Hopefully it'll end up in your neighbor's yard next year. But yeah, you are correct. It is not, we cannot, in Ventura County, Lowe's and Home Depot cannot sell tropical milkweed anymore.
Can you explain why they made that ruling?
Yeah. Can I,
Yeah.
You know?
No, I would give this to Antonio. He is the expert.
So it's a really good so the state of California, they decided that tropical milkweed, Asclepias curacauvica, is that it's potentially dangerous for our monarchs. And then so they last May, I think, 2022, they came out with they listed it as a type B noxious weed. So type A is illegal. That's the worst they can get. And type B means every county can decide that there's an agriculture commission in every county, and that county can decide what they want their nurseries to do. They can't go into someone's house and private property, but they can say, these are so dangerous that we're not. And so ours was the first county. There's only a few other counties, but our ag commissioner was the first in California to take this in a few weeks. He heard that and he said, let's do it. We're going to make it legal. So they sent the letters, phone calls to Lowe's, not just Lowe's, But all the backyard folks and Fillmore and Green Thumb and then they went to go visit them too, just to make sure. It's a good selling plant. I feel bad for the folks that were relying on that, but sometimes we gotta change things.
Was it the reason because it had puts off a toxicity?
So there's a few different reasons, and I think the state of California will admit that we don't have a smoking gun, as far as we don't have all of these dozens of research papers that show that this is what's happening. But what we do know is happening is that it almost never dies to the ground. If I've asked anybody who's growing it, does that plant die to the ground? And the answer is always no. That plant is up 24 hours a day. And so what that means is that it's attracting the monarchs to lay their eggs at a time when there's not really any other milkweed or nectar. That's probably the bigger thing, is there's no nectar. There's not a lot of nectaring plants in California in December, right? That's just not how California is. The other thing is, when the plant doesn't die to the ground, every time our native plant dies to the ground, if it has anything potential like a disease on the leaves, whenever it dies to the ground, that disease is gone from the leaves and the brand new growth is clean. And so that tropical milkweed never dies to the ground. And so there's a lot of proof that it's harboring this pest. They call it OE. I forget the long, like 14-letter word for it. But so those are the two main reasons, right? Is that it's attracting the monarchs to lay eggs when they shouldn't. It's like, like going around and like selling alcohol like a junior high. Like, don't. They're doing something. They're going to school. Stop, right? So that, and then also it's that it does harbor that disease. Our native one does too, but it cleans itself every year, right? So so it's this relationship it has with the monarchs. So I'm proud to say that, being from Oxnard, that our county was the first. We'd love to see LA County do it and some of the bigger counties, but they haven't stepped up yet. Did that answer your question? Yeah? Okay.
Do we have any more questions?
Alrighty, well, that basically covers it for what we're going to talk about. Once again, we're with, oh, yes. Were you growing in pots as well?
No,
Antonio.
So here's what happens in a tropical plant. I don't want to get too much into this because we're not talking about California, but a tropical plant, what do they love? Water and sun or warmth, right? It very rarely gets. So what happened this winter? A lot of water, which is tropical, but it was cold, right? So yeah, they drowned. Mm-hmm. And we see that happen in the desert with desert plants a lot. When we have they can handle the cold. I don't know if you go to Phoenix and Vegas and El Paso. It gets cold out there, but it doesn't get wet. So when it's cold and wet, we'll lose a lot of desert plants out here too. So tropical plants, cold and wet. Desert plants, cold and wet. They hate it for different reasons. Yeah.
That's basically it with our questions. Yeah, once again, we're with the Santa Monica Mountains Fund. We have a nursery out in Thousand Oaks. If you folks ever find yourself down there, or when you find yourself down there and you're interested in volunteering with us, we have our events open Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, typically from 9 to 12. If you want to volunteer, you're more than welcome to swing by for those hours. And we're happy to give you 3 native plants to take back home with you those days as well. We also have programs that we have back in our tent right there. You'll see that we have a program called Oxnard Youth Ecologists. We are happy to take donations. Our grant is well set. We are more than equipped. But what we do with our Oxnard Youth Ecologist program is we bring kids out from Oxnard High School, and we bring them out to our parks. We buy them breakfast, and we take them out to be able to explore and become young naturalists in these landscapes and places we have. Yeah. Rancho Sierra Vista is the name of our nursery. You can find it on maps. It's pretty easy. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Cool. So let me get this set up. I don't want to take too long on this, but I'm gonna do this. Is that legal? All right. So how many people have grown native plants before? Yeah.
So I grew up in Oxnard. My family's been here, Santa Paula at first since the 20s.
They moved to Oxnard in the 50s and the 60s, And then I grew up in El Paso. I was born in Oxnard. I grew up in El Paso. And after my parents passed away, I really wanted to get into agriculture, growing food in Oxnard, right? And so I went to school for sustainable ag, but I really wanted something that felt, some of the stuff that I was learning I wasn't connecting to it. And when I was going to school, I got into low water, low resource plants, right? The plants that don't need us to feed them a lot with fertilizers that could potentially be dangerous and then not use a lot of water, since I don't know if you guys know, but California really doesn't have a ton of water. And then I found out about California native plants through this book called Chocolate and Chiles. It's a book about the native food of the Americas. And there was a plant in there called mesquite. And mesquite, I'm all, that's what we barbecue with. And anyways, long story short, I remember calling up my tia in Mexico, where my mom's from. My dad's side is from Oxnard. My mom's side is from Coahuila, from the tri-state, like Durango and Chihuahua. And long story short, I asked her, tia, if you guys remember eating mesquite, and for sure, they used to eat it as a candy. If you guys don't know what mesquite is, it looks like a pea. Well, the tree is about 6 to about 20 feet tall, and it produces this pea-like thing. It looks like a weed. If you ever been in Tucson, Vegas, Phoenix, El Paso, it's considered a weed. But a lot of native people, from Southwest and Mexico, and it occurs in Argentina too, different species, been eating it for probably thousands of years. And so I started exploring with it, and that got me into native plants. And it made me feel finally at home here in California, that we could grow stuff that was from where my mom was from. And that occurs here, maybe not here in Oxnard, because it doesn't occur naturally in Oxnard, but it occurs about 100 miles that way towards Riverside. And it made me feel like I'm not such a stranger in California. But I really wanted to start respecting Oxnard, because I felt it was kind of disrespectful for us to grow all these plants and not grow any native plants. And I'm like, well, learning the history of what happened in California with native folks, you can almost say what happened to native folks happened to their plants. It's almost hard to pull those two things apart. It's hard to pull Chumash people away from an oak tree. It's hard to pull desert Papago native folks from Arizona away from the mesquite tree. So it really was important to me to learn about the native plants, and that's where I fell in love with California. So I want to introduce you guys to 7 of what I consider my best friends. I think the first one is golden currant. So, oh, native plants, you are such a pain in the ass. So native plants, this is why native plants are not found in Home Depot, if you guys want to know, is because we only have 6,500 native plants in California, and the world has hundreds of thousands. And Lowe's gets to pick from the hundreds of thousands, and we get to pick from the 6,500. So it's almost not fair to put, like, it's like saying, hey, so who's the most beautiful person in the world? I don't know, like, who's beautiful? Somebody, whoever's in Hollywood, there you go. But you got to pick from the whole world. And now you say, pick someone for your family and okay. So this is golden currant. Golden currant looks amazing when you take care of it in a garden, which means water it about every 10 days, 14 days, which is way more than it gets in nature. And then this is what golden currant looks like when God and Creator are taking care of it. And you could see why people are like, well, but this is food. This is the first native food I ever had. Have you guys ever had golden currant? You guys should try it. It's really, really good. And it's hard to find a native fruit that's naturally sweet. And so golden currant occurs in a bunch of different areas in Southern California, out in heat, full sun with no water, part shade with a lot of water. It's really easy to grow. So this occurs in our parks, and I love this plant. I hope that the friends of Campus Park will plant this, not just as a fruiting plant that people can eat, that we can eat and reconnect to Ventura County. This is one of Ventura County's best fruits. But as a pollinator plant. So this guy flowers in December and January, which we have a little proof that sometimes the monarchs are actually waking up a little bit earlier. So if they're going to wake up earlier, we might need more early flowering pollinator plants. So this guy strongly flowers in February. So if the monarchs are waking up a few weeks earlier than they usually do, which is normally in March, then we might need some plants. And don't just take my word for it. This plant is on the UC Davis list of 100 plants good for Sacramento Valley, low water. It wasn't just native plants, it's any plant. and they selected this as a good plant. If you guys looked at this, you guys ever run a marathon? That's probably what you look like after you run a marathon, right? That's probably what you look like at the starting line. Our native plants with a little care can look amazing. So I want to encourage you guys to learn how to maintain native plants. It doesn't take a lot, but there is a big difference. So I'm going to leave this up here because I adore that plant. If you guys want to pick one fruit, this was just pulled from an area that doesn't get watered and doesn't get sprayed or anything. So it's a completely, clean. Yes.
So if you plant the one in your yard and take care of it, it's real nice and healthy like that, it's going to bear fruit like the other one?
Oh yeah, they'll bear fruit. That's a great question. So it's like citrus. You guys ever grown citrus? If you water citrus too much, what happens? It hates overwater, especially out here in Oxnard and Ventura. We have such heavy clay soil that will sometimes kill the plant, but we'll water down the sweetness of the fruit. Some of the best citrus I've ever had is a no water tree that was probably 20, 30 feet. The roots were just tapping into groundwater. And that is, oh man.
And then full sun, does that make
Full sun to part shade. Yeah, I wouldn't say, I don't have enough proof that sun makes this sweeter. I'm not sure. I've seen this dozens of times, but I don't know about that.
still can grow in part shade?
It can go part shade. Yeah, yeah, for sure. A rust. Yeah. Yeah. So she said that, do you hear the question? Yeah, that she grows a bunch of marijuana in her backyard. I can only use a marijuana joke like 2 or 3 times and then it just becomes stupid. It just becomes a truth. What was your question? Oh, so here's what I have learned. So golden currant, just in case I don't get to it, it self-pollinates, but it creates a lot more fruit when there's others around, like a blueberry. So we always recommend at least 3. And then the rust even happens in nature. So about August or September, it's starting to happen right there, right? It'll happen even in nature. And so what happens is the plant naturally just drops its leaves for about 3 months. And so you don't have to cut it off. It's this relationship that it has. And I wouldn't treat for it because whatever you treat, it might stay in the surface. It might stay in the plants. It might hurt other things, right? So we try to keep everything organic. But this is not a problem. It doesn't hurt the plant at all. Yes, yeah. Any questions about golden currant? No? Cool. So the second plant that I want to talk about, we do have some of these plants to give away, is bladder pod. This plant reminds me of my mom. Bladder pod. So yeah, this plant, see that little fruit? I guess some people say it looks like a bladder. It's related to capers, so you can crack open the bladder, and the seed you can cook, or you can boil the seed. It takes a long time because it's pretty bitter, but you can eat it like you would a pea or a caper. But what I love about this plant is that you could find it on the 1 freeway. I just seen it the other day. Right next to the ocean, like trying to touch the ocean is growing on the cliff, but then you can see it in Barstow. There's very few native plants that occur on the ocean and in Barstow. Do you guys know where Barstow's at? It's in the desert. If you're into plants, there's just not plants that normally hang out in those 2 scenarios. And so this guy can take almost anything, and he flowers almost all year. Has anyone ever grown bladder pod? Can you confirm that it flowers almost all year? Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. And another plant, if it flowers all year, it's good for pollinators all year. It can take full sun in Barstow, even part shade here in Oxnard. So it's super adaptable. Highly recommend. It's about the size of a rosemary, a little bit bigger. So about 3 to about 6 feet, depending on how much water you give it and where it lives, and easy to prune, easy to maintain. We have a few to give away if you guys are interested. It's a beautiful plant. Has a beautiful yellow flower. Some people say it smells like burnt popcorn, the leaf. Do you know what do you think the leaf smells like to you, ma'am? What does the leaf smell like to you? Okay. Yeah. Some people don't like the smell. Some people love it, but it's not a plant that you can smell away from the plant, right? Not like sage, or you can smell it. So unless you guys are sleeping in your plants, which is probably cool, I would like to talk to you after this. It doesn't smell, right? But if you guys want to smell it and check out the plant, I forgot to bring one that was in full flower. So these guys are about to flower, so you can't really see. But trust me, it's gorgeous. We had one of the the main plant botanist that works at the ag commissioner's office out at the nursery a few months ago, and he's like, bladder pod. And I'm all, you know, bladder pod. And he's like, that's my favorite native plant. More people should grow it. It's also on the UC Davis All-Star list. UC Davis, they get paid a lot for all their, you know, bachelor's or whatever kind of degrees they have. And they've made this one of the top 100 plants for California. So, and it occurs right here in our county. You guys ever grown hummingbird sage? So this is another one. I love hummingbird sage. Oh, the reason this reminds me of my mom, right, is that she was pretty rough. She could handle the beach or the desert. That's an adaptable that's an adaptable plant. It reminds me a lot of her. But I'll get into so hummingbird sage. This plant I love because it teaches a lesson about maintenance. If you see hummingbird sage in nature, it looks amazing in March. It's in flower. If you go back to hummingbird sage in September, you might not find it because it goes to sleep. But in the garden with water every 10 days, it's evergreen. It looks like a lawn. It's green all year. So it's a difference. If we add a little bit of water, our plants look amazing, some of them. And if we let them go dormant, they look like what California wants to look like, which might be fine for you, but for a lot of folks, we want to keep it evergreen. And the other thing is maintenance. We can cut the flowers as they dry off, which is just deadheading, right? Or basic gardening. And if you do that, this guy can flower from December. I've had it flower all the way till June, which is a long time for a plant that you're only watering 3 times a month. And I don't know if you guys know by the name hummingbird sage, but let's take a guess as to what it attracts. Hummingbirds. Man, you guys are smart. So I was going to make an Oxnard joke, but I don't want to make an Oxnard joke. I love this plant. Again, on the UC Davis All-Star list, a lot of Ventura County plants on that All-Star list. There's only about 30 native plants out of the 100 on that list, and a lot of them are from Ventura County. I adore this plant, but my favorite thing to do with this plant is to eat it. It's a really tasty plant. So what we do is I got a bunch of leaves. If you guys want to take some home, we just cut them this morning. It smells like pineapple. It's a really tropical smell. And so what we do is we take we take honey and we wash about 5 leaves. And then we can blend that in with the honey. I'm going to finish talking about the plants and I'll make you guys some sage. And if you guys want to try it, you can just stick your finger out and you guys can try it. It's amazing. My kids love it just on pancakes, on yogurt, just plain yogurt. If you add honey with hummingbird sage, it has like this chaparral honey taste to it. It's really, really good. So I'll make some in a second, but I love that plant. Probably the most, anybody know what that is? So this is, it's a weapon in case you guys have an intruder. These guys, so native folks used to, and some probably still do, put tattoos. You can use this to ink yourself if you want. They're that sharp. They're super, super sharp. This is yucca. The Spanish called it Our Lord's Candle. But this is a really good lesson to me on why we plant our local plants. So there's only one thing that will pollinate this plant, and that's the yucca, the chaparral yucca moth. And so the yucca moth needs this plant, and this plant needs the moth. And what the moth will do is lay her eggs inside the flower as it develops into a little huevito, the fruit. And then the caterpillars will, or I don't know if the moth, I don't think the caterpillars, but whatever, the little moth, you know what they are, whatever. Yeah, they'll eat their way through the fruit. And then they'll drop to the ground. And they'll sit there for years sometimes in the ground, underground, just below ground, dormant until the time is right. But you guys may have seen these. They're about 5 to about 15 feet tall on the side of the hills. They're out there right now. They usually start about April. And this plant to me is amazing because this is how I really feel at home in California. My parents both passed away on April 26th. And to me, I'm looking for something that connects me to California. And I was driving, this is a long time ago, feeling really sad on April 26th. And I just seen 2 huge flowering stems. I don't know if you guys believe in Day of the Dead or people coming back, but those 2 things just shining right by the Santa Monica Mountains, I thought, that's amazing that what, if a spirit's going to come back to California to look at California in its glory, when would it be? Probably not September. It's pretty dry. Probably not December. It's that time when the super blooms. And whenever I see a stupid moth or a stupid yucca flowering, to me, it just feels like a spirit just looking over the chaparral, how beautiful California is. It's so beautiful. And there's a really interesting thing with the yucca is that it only flowers once and then it dies. And so it has this intense relationship where the plant dies, but it creates these clones around the base and it kind of pups out. And the stalk, if you guys know agave, it looks like an agave flower, right? It almost looks like an artichoke or asparagus. And you can actually cut that asparagus and peel it, and it tastes like jicama. It's amazing. But you can only do that once because the plant only flowers once. And so there's this relationship. To me, it's a ceremonial fruit, right? There's plants that we have for ceremony, or you guys might have a plant that maybe your grandma who passed away had in her garden, right? So we have these plants that we connect to. And to me, when I'm surrounded by these plants, almost everything else can go wrong and I'm good. Because if anything goes wrong in my personal life, I still know that the plants are going to flower. I still know that I have food, and I still know that the stupid plant, even if there's 2 inches of rain, this guy's going to flower. This thing won't stop flowering. So it's really, it makes me feel real safe, right? In California, it just makes me feel like I'm at home. Do you have a question, ma'am? So there's a lot of yuccas in the world. This yucca is called, they call it Our Lord's Candle. Yeah, but there are a lot of yuccas in the world, so I don't want to say that. Yeah, they're on the hills right now. So the fruit is different than the flowering stalk, right? No, the fruit is on the flowering stalk. So that's the flowering stalk. And you have to get it real young. Well, it's about 6 to 8 inches tall. You almost can't even see it at that point. You have to be in front of it. Well, it's up to you, right? To me, I eat it because it's an agreement that I have with California that if I eat you, I'm going to take your seed away. I'm not going to let you reproduce, but I'm going to do everything I can to get all these plants out to people, right? So to me, it's like going to church. Yeah, they are. Yeah, there's millions of them. Yeah, it's a pretty cool thing. So the next one is milkweed, and you guys hopefully got a bunch of milkweed. They didn't cover this, and they should have. That you can break the stem, get the milk, and put it in your eye, and you could lose your eyesight. It's a super toxic plant, super toxic plant. I just can't. So it's a very toxic plant, but it's great because that's what the monarchs get it for, is because it's toxic. But what I love about it, and they touched on it a little bit, is that it's been here for thousands of years, and there are some native folks who don't just use it for cordage, but they have creation stories about it, right? And those stories aren't mine to tell. I don't have any California native blood, but I think it's amazing that we can plant a plant that has such an intense relationship with the monarchs and with native folks. And unfortunately, a lot of native folks don't have access to plants anymore. And so for us, it's really important that they get access to plants. So when we grow this at the park, we actually will cut it down, hang it. And Sophia, did you bring the dry cord? Just kidding. I was going to show you guys how to make cordage today. But instead, I'll just let you know that if you guys grow plants and you have dried stalks, right? So if this is the ground, the stalks will be about 3 feet tall, and you can create a lot, even with just 5 plants. We'll take the cordage from you guys. If you could bundle it up, we'll take it, because what we do is we actually pass it out to folks, to native folks. We have a few friends who will take it, use it in their classes, or we teach classes ourselves on how to use that stuff. So we'd love to have that relationship with you guys. If you want to give us your cordage, we'll take it. We'll put it to good use. Let's see. There's a few more plants to talk about, and then I'll do the food. Sages. There's over 1,000 sages in the world, and I brought 3. You guys already seen one hummingbird sage, and then there's black sage, and then there's purple sage. Don't ask me why they call it purple. Is that purple? Is it? Okay, I must be colorblind then. I don't know why that's called black sage. That don't look black to me. Maybe when it's on the hills, it looks darker, but it definitely. But this is really sweet. If you guys want to come up later and just rub the leaf and smell it, this is really sweet. This is a lot more pungent. But the sages are awesome, awesome for butterflies and all that stuff. But the white sage is my favorite because that's the one that a lot of people use to cleanse stuff with, to pray with, and do a bunch of other things. So during the next, when's the next workshop? July 8th?
Saturday, the 8th of July
And so in 2 weeks,
at 10.
yeah, we'll be doing a lot of more tasting of food, and apart from this. So if you guys want, we'll be tasting black sage lemonade at that time. That's a really, really sweet lemonade. And if you like the mixed drinks, it's good for mixed drinks too. But the sages are some of the easiest to grow. They're like lavenders or rosemary. They kind of take over that size of spot, maybe a little bit bigger than those. Sure.
Could you plant sage and milkweed in proximity to each other, or should you not do that? Because one might take over the other.
Sage and milkweed? Yeah, you can plant them together for sure. I will give them space because they get big. Yeah, but you can plant them together for sure. Yeah. Does anybody have any other questions? Go ahead.
So when you said the milkweed being toxic, is it toxic to animals? Is that
It's highly toxic to animals. So here's what I've been working with native plants for 18 years, and hopefully you can tell I'm not gonna bullshit you, right? So I've sold this. I used to have a native plant nursery with my cousin in Ventura, Nopalito Native Plant Nursery. I've given and sold out at this point probably 50,000 of these plants. People will let you know when something dies. People are so scared of plants, and it's kind of ridiculous because there's just no dog out there going out there and just munching on stuff.
right?
Very rarely does it happen, right? So there's
They're
a
not attractive.
there's a genus of plants called euphorbia. The euphorbias that have a very similar toxic sap that they sell at Home Depot all the time, and nobody's dying from it. There aren't dogs dying from it, and no one's ever come back and asked me for a refund of milkweed. This is not milkweed, but of this.
Right.
What I would say is I would go plant them, and if I don't hear from you, you probably died. I'm just kidding.
I'm not gonna eat
It just doesn't happen. We're a lot more worried with like castor bean, poison hemlock. Those are plants that people sometimes they have either medicinal uses for people, or they look like another plant, and people might go and eat them, and those have killed people. But let's put it this way: if your dog dies, it's probably too dumb to. I'm just kidding. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. That's really mean. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The toxin, if I recall, the toxin that milkweed gives to the monarch then allows the monarch to not be eaten by birds. Does the bird
Yeah.
know that the monarch, it doesn't taste good, right?
It's yes. So she was saying that the poison or the toxin that the caterpillar gets from that food is what it needs to fight off or keep birds away, which is 100% true. So take off my daughter put a little unicorn ring on me the other day. She wanted to marry me. That was cute. I love it. So let me make could you do me a favor, Manny? Could you help me out with this, por favor? So Manny's gonna go around and I have some mesquite powder. If you guys want to hold your hand out and he can dump into your palm a little mesquite powder. If you want to taste it, all it is just the mesquite pod that's dried. It's been ground up into this amazing powder.
Do they use it on barbecue? The powder?
No, it's sweet. So this is it right here. And if there's a little scoop in there, if you can see if anybody wants. So that's our native mesquite. And what we use it for is cooking. So you can make cookies out of it. You can actually make a really amazing mole out of it. It has a chocolate flavor to it.
So it's sweet.
It's naturally sweet. It's like no, it's a flour. So we can make cookies out of it, and you can use like half either like maseca, like cornmeal, or half like flour. There's a bunch of recipes online. There's actually 2 whole recipes on cooking with mesquite. What I usually use it for is you can use it for pizzas, pancakes, cookies, and smoothies. People, if you live in an overpriced neighborhood with Teslas, you probably use it like in smoothies. I love that people use native plants like superfoods, but that's just not how they were used before, right? They were just used as foods. So I try to use them more traditionally, but I know a lot of people who will pay like $13 a pound for it will use it for smoothies. But I think you lose
there's a texture to it.
Yeah, you lose your relationship with the plant. I think then it just becomes an ingredient for you to better your life. But to me, it's an ingredient that connects me to California. Doesn't mean that I don't think that makes it better. I think it's a different way of looking at the plants. So here's some honey. I washed 5 leaves.
And so just to give you guys an example, this was the stem this morning. I ripped off these leaves, and I'm gonna put the leaves in here. Those are washed, and I'm gonna put the rest of the and this will stay for at least a month if you wanted it to. Honey has that, that property in it that tends to,
Antibacterial.
yeah, keep stuff. I probably wouldn't keep it for more than a month, but I have. And all we do is blend it, yogurt, on all sorts of stuff. What's that? You can put mint too, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
What did you put in?
All this is hummingbird sage
the
leaves.
hummingbird.
Yeah.
There was a liquid in the bottom when you started.
That was already honey, so I didn't have to pour.
Oh,
That was half the bottle, so I didn't
oh,
have to pour.
I missed that.
Yeah. And it's like soup. The longer you keep it in, the stronger it gets. The other 2 ways we use it is as a tea. If you guys want to take some leaves home, you're welcome to. The leaves is just like a tea. It's very sweet. It's a naturally sweet tea. And then believe it,
The leaves first and then use them like food.
they don't dry very well. The leaves
Okay,
don't dry.
just do them fresh.
They need to be fresh. Yeah. And then we also fry the leaves. So we get big ones. And that's when I do my classes in Ojai. Just kidding. But we took the idea because I know a lot of people are into like native food. And like people make like kale chips. They'll put them in the oven, right? So they didn't really work in the oven for it, but we tried frying them about 25 seconds. Flip them a few times and crack some pepper and some. They're really, that's for the bigger leaves like these guys right here. So I'll go around and actually let me ask Sophia, could you help me out real quick? Could you just take this bottle, and if anybody wants, they could stick their finger out and we could just give them a little hit of that. But this stuff stays for a long time. Cool. Thank you. And you guys are, if you like, there's some golden currant here. I think the whole point is that these plants, so every plant I talked about today except for mesquite occurs within probably 10 miles from here, or used to, right? And the fact that we don't know them is okay. But I think the fact that we, from this point on, don't want to know them, I don't think is okay, because I think when we bring stuff back, like the chaparral yucca, like there's an insect that wants to use that. Like this, like our kids and ourselves, like we want to connect. If you don't do it, it's all good. No one's going to judge you. I will actually, I'll judge you. But I think part of the problem, if I could be honest with us, is that we're disconnected. We go to Lowe's to shop with our eyes. It's like, is anybody dating right now? You guys go on those apps to date? And they show you a picture, right? So imagine those dating apps didn't have a picture. And all they did was just have, I'm low water. I'll give you fruit with 4 inches of rain. And I will provide food for pollinators in February. At that point, I almost don't care what you look like, because I want you for that. And then the fact that you are really beautiful is just extra, right? And so that's what we're trying to do, is trying to know our plants, instead of a lantana that has multiple colors and they're all good, whatever. But these have stories behind them, right? And there's native people that can still tell those stories. But does anybody here have California native blood? See, that's unfortunate, right? But we're not trying to take over anybody's culture, but we're trying to appreciate it. You bring back native people, you bring back native plants. Like this, it's all connected. It's a beautiful thing. Yes. Mm-hmm. So that's a good question. So where we work was all like citrus and peaches at one time, right? And so yeah, people were trying to grow everything. This is the 1800s. I don't know if you know what happened in the 1800s, but it wasn't people being nice to native things in general. people would still say there's not being nice to native things. And so we have a history of just avoiding all that. And when it's put it this way, like if you take a California native, we'll say like a Chumash person, right? Just from the 1800s, and you separate them so much from their culture, and that's like asking how come they haven't. Now we stopped separating them. How come they don't speak their language anymore? Because it's been well, there are, but there's so many weeds, right? And there's so many fires that happen too often now, right? There's all these factors. It let the weeds come in, right? Because the weeds are more aggressive. Yeah, our plants usually want to take their time. Yeah. So we work in the nursery. We collect about 70 species of plants a year, and we're freezing the seed. Right, we're long-term conservation, but we have all these grants to give out plants to the public because the park is great. But honestly, what we're trying to do is take the park back out here and repopulate Southern California with these plants. It'd be amazing. Yeah, there are people talking to landscape companies. It's hard to tell someone how to run their business though. And a lot of landscapers, I've tried, but a lot of landscapers, they don't want to be told what to do. And I respect that, and they work on Saturdays, right? It's hard to find a time. And if you don't come from a background that values education, which doesn't mean you're a bad person, you just learned everything by working, then there's a lot of work to be done in that sector, But it's not as easy as like, imagine going to a panaderia, right? And go, hey, you should use organic. Like, yeah, it really is. It's a very hard sell when you're messing with someone's business. Oh, there are, but they're so, there's so few, unfortunately. Yeah.
Back to the white space, are you all doing anything to support the preservation of white space? Because I know
Yeah.
it's been highly appropriated by big companies, non-native people to pick it up, so take it, tratarlo without proper respect. So I don't know if you all are aware of the video of Saving the World.
Yeah.
So I think it's on the list of things that
Threatened. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're trying to get the movie. We're trying to show it here. We're trying to arrange to show it here. But I think more important than the movie, because honestly, just the movie, you don't do anything, is to get the plants out there. So we, at the park, we grow a bunch of the plants and we give them out. But it would be nice my dream would be to have a grant like this to give out white sage too, right? But we gotta be careful because a lot of people consider white sage sacred. And so it would be like going to a Catholic church and handing out like holy water, right? Should we just be handing out holy water at a remate, at a garage sale, or maybe not? There's education to go with it, right? To make sure that you do it correctly. So, yeah, but there's a bunch of people doing all that work. It's good work. Yeah. And there's white sage. I seen it right here, but the school district has some in their garden. I was gonna jump and take some, but those days are behind me. You guys are gonna see me right now. Anybody else? Otra pregunta? Any other questions?
The name of the movie you're talking about?
The name of the movie, I don't think you can see it online. It's called Saging the World. It's 21 minutes. Has a lot of native folks, a few non-native folks talking about like white sage, why they use it, how they use it. And the sad part is like just trash bags full of people just going to the mountains and cutting it and then selling it at Venice for like $10 a bunch, which I think is okay if you do it in a sustainable manner with permission and all those things. But we lost. It's like we had the 2 pieces of bread, but we forgot the meat. Oh, that sounds good for lunch. All right. Well, my card's over there. If you guys are interested, we work at that nursery. We'd be happy to offer you guys more plants if you're interested. And like they said, does anybody know any high schoolers from Oxnard area? We have an amazing Oxnard high school program, not just Oxnard High, Rio Mesa, the whole school district, where we pay them $15 an hour. We'll pick them up at Oxnard High. We'll take them to us to collect. They grew some of this milkweed, So I see someone who looks like they could be an OYA person right there. It's called the Oxnard Young Ecologist, the OYA program. It's probably the thing that I personally probably most proud of. So if you guys know anyone, we have flyers for it right there. It's going to start up again in September. So thank you guys for your work. If you guys have extra money, we would take donations too. Thank you guys. Oh, I brought these plants. These are just the Brad Pitts of the Santa Monicas. They're just pretty. We have 3 penstemons. Oh yeah, these are for bees. These are 3 different penstemons. That's a big one. For Mother's Day, the penstemon. Oh, for Mother's Day flowers, these stalks will get like 5 feet long. 5 feet long. These guys are a little bit harder to grow because they want to be dry. Right? They want to be dry. Some of the stuff I talked about today is a lot easier to grow. This is golden yarrow. So I don't know if you guys know the Lakers, but that purple and gold is there for a reason. That's California. Purple and gold is actually the most dominant colors in our mountains. And then this is from the islands too, hoping that the campus park could plant some island plants. This is island bush poppy. Yeah, and so we have this plant in the mainland, but it's bush poppy. It looks a little different. It's a little skinnier. It doesn't flower as much. The island one is probably much bigger. So hopefully there'll be an island section out here too with the really cool island stuff. But yeah, I could talk forever about plants. My coworkers are amazing. You should check them out too. We have another giveaway July 8th. We'll be here for like 2 hours. Saturday, July 8th. What time?
Saturday, July 8th at 10, same place.
We're gonna be at BJ's Cafe at 8 a.m.
So thanks
My name's
again,
Antonio.
folks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Antonio. We're the Friends of Campus Park. Again, friendsofcampuspark.org. Thank you guys for the collaboration. And we're going to be improving these workshops as we go on.
There's a monarch. You guys see the monarch?
Yep.
There it is.
So please go on our website or our Facebook and just let us know what you thought. We want to improve this, what changes you want, and all that. Thank you.
Hey, I got other plants to give out too. I forgot. If you guys want, there's mugwort.
Oh, okay. All right, I will.
This plant has probably the ugliest value. Not the ugliest, the most nondescript. But it's an amazing plant. It occurs all the way down the line. Traditionally, then there's butterpot, the one that has the flowers all year long. The other person is more slow. This is that hurts. Gooseberry. This has a fruit. So that's gooseberry, and then this is you guys doing green. This is sagebrush. So you can cut sagebrush, and you can dry the stems, and then add the leaves. Yeah, you could add the leaves to salt. And you have sagebrush salt all on the chicken. Oh, you just cut it and let it dry. The leaf will fall off. Yeah, that's how I use it. Yeah, put it in I use
You have to give 3
That's just it.
Yes.
So that one wants to be a little bit drier.
Oh.
If you have it next to a lawn, it'll probably be dead. Yeah. So if you water.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good.
I'm
That's mugwort.
sorry? What was that? Oh,
On the other side, you have this plant? Yep. That's, I would. That's a gooseberry. But it has a beautiful red flower.
Me voy con ustedes.
si quieres.
It's a little.
Hey.
Yeah, it's more like yeah, more like and you can grow if you need it to be flat. You can grow it flat, like a espalier against the wall. So if you have like a little spot that's only this deep or less deep, you could shove it up and make it skinny, or you can let it get wide too. It's real flexible. These are sagebrush, right? And so that you can use for cooking. And then this is mugwort, which is more like more of a medicinal plant. This is more like by our wet areas in the park, and then this is more in our dry areas. Yeah, you know, like when it rains, like a week later, where it's still wet, that's what this is about. And a day later, when it's dry, that's what this is.
So I have a small yard. But, you know, no plants. Or I have the garden bed.
Yeah. So a small, what you can see there is a small yard. Yes. So one of the things that we'll do with Aurelio is do maintenance classes. And we'll show you. I think people are afraid to cut native plants. They're easy. You just have to cut them at the right time.
It's like I have other herbs growing, but like in a big pot. This would probably go into an area.
No, not necessarily. I would say that's gonna get in a pot. You probably want to get the size of like a lavender.
Okay.
So about 3 feet tall. But you can grow fine with smaller. Like
Yeah.
Yeah. Mint like at the bottom.
Yeah.
And that coming up for sure. Yeah.
So you used to sell plants at the Nopal?
That was my nursery. Yeah.
I used
That was
to go
my-
and buy plants over there. And then suddenly you guys gone.
Well, yeah, they put us in jail. They said, you know
No.
what the charge was?
For real?
That our nursery was too nice.
No,
Is that
it
the
was,
one on Thompson?
it was,
Yeah,
it was really nice. And like suddenly they just gone.
Yeah, well, it was too hard. You know, that was the years when people were living in the houses, 2010, 2011. And these were a luxury, huh? And then those was having a hard time at that time. Imagine us with these plants. So if those can't sell you a rose, imagine what the hell we do trying to sell you a milkweed.
Are you familiar with Matula?
Yeah, I'm sure nursery more park. Yeah, yeah. So you get people
We go
Yeah.
over there and we.
for years. Yeah.
That's the pineapple.
What's your name? Okay. Yeah. Nice. You live here in Oxnard? Yeah. What part?